All right, what is up? Kyle Mohan Racing, KMR. We got some rap. I've had some questions about Apex seal identification, the difference between 2mm, 3mm RX7, and why we're modifying RX8 rotors for RX7 Apex seals, and a little bit of what that is. I think there's been some confusion, and I get a lot of questions about modifying RX8 rotors to 3mm, and that's not actually what we recommend or what we do. 3mm is an early seal, and when you talk about 2mm Apex seals or 3mm Apex seals, we're not talking about the height or the length, we're talking about the thickness. And if you look, your early 12A, early 13B seals were actually a thicker, heavier seal known as a 3mm seal. And when you get into your RX8 and RX7 seals, they're much skinnier and much lighter because of that, and they're known as a 2mm seal. So, to give reference, 3mm and 2mm is not talking about how tall they are, it's talking about how thick they are. So, when you're modifying an RX8 rotor to run RX7 Apex seals, you're not widening the groove, you're deepening the groove. You're making it taller because the RX8 Apex seal was never meant to go across an exhaust port. It's not tall, and the Apex seal has a tendency to sag under heat because it lacks beam strength. It's a very small seal. The RX8 only has intake side ports and exhaust side ports. So the seal itself did not need the beam strength that the RX7 seals have had, basically from 1986 all the way up to 1999. And you can see there are variations, one piece, two piece, and the original three piece, all made in 2mm and available either from Mazda Speed or Mazda OEM or aftermarket companies. But the primary RX7 seal that you're going to run is a 2mm wide traditional RX7 height Apex seal, and that's going to be for most all RX7 rotors, your second generation RX7, your third gen RX7, and if you're running RX8 rotors in an RX7, then you need to deepen the groove so it can run a traditional height RX7 seal. Now, when we get into talking about, again, 3mm seals, there are some companies that offer aftermarket 3mm seals. So if you damage a rotor, if you're going for 50 pounds of boost and you're having Apex seal fatigue, then it might be a reason to cut the rotors wider as well. But to be honest, it's a very difficult machining process, and we don't necessarily recommend upgrading RX7 rotors to 3mm because the Apex seal is actually heavier, causes more wear, and is generally not necessary for most performance and OEM builds, where you can run a 2mm seal, which is lighter, more readily available, and more traditional to what the OEM cars were running. And again, the reason this really came up is I started to get questions about cutting RX8 rotors for 3mm seals. And I go, why do you want to do that? You want to put a 2mm RX7 seal in your RX8 rotor if you're doing anything. You're matching a lightweight rotor with a modern lightweight seal with a lot of aftermarket support. You don't really want to end up in a situation where you're limiting yourself of Apex seal choices because you've jumped into the 3mm category, which is, in my opinion, an older seal that has less availability, both from OEM and aftermarket, and you're going to be carrying more weight at the tip of your rotor, which can lead to chatter, more wear, more fatigue, and things like that. Now, drag racing, super high horsepower. There is a reason that some of the drag racers, exceptionally high horsepower builds, sometimes do jump to 3mm. But unless you're doing something just absolutely extreme, breaking the internet, then you're probably okay with your 2mm RX7 seal category, which again has the most aftermarket support, most variety. You can get carbon, ceramic, OEM steel, aftermarket steel, 2-piece, 3-piece, and 1-piece, giving you a wide variety of choices to suit your rotary needs. And vice versa, there's never really a reason to run the RX8 Apex seal unless it's just a normal RX8 motor, in which case, perfect. That's what it's made for. The RX8 is a little more limited in its aftermarket support options for Apex seals. So again, I think when it comes to hybrid builds, boosted RX8s, or using the RX8 rotors in RX7 applications, that's where we've had a lot of this talk where, okay, you need to modify the rotors, deepen the Apex seal groove for a 2mm RX7 seal of your choice. Maybe that could be another topic of discussion, as we could talk a little bit about all of the different Apex seal choices that are out there. So I hope that clears up a little bit of the discussion on rotors and which Apex seal to use if you're using RX8 rotors in an RX7, or RX8 rotors in an RX8, or RX7 rotors in RX7. If anybody has questions, definitely drop a comment below. Meant to clear some of this up. Hopefully that does help out a little bit. Another notable end to Apex seal selection is you always want to match your corner seal to the Apex seal. Obviously, if you're running 2mm seals, run a 2mm corner seal. And if for any reason you are running 3mm, maybe it's a 12A, early 13B, then you would need 3mm corner seals as well, because the Apex seal does go into the corner seal and it needs to match accordingly. So just a little bit of rotary knowledge, because we have answered some emails and phone calls lately. I hope everybody is having a wonderful, wonderful time playing with the rotary. I think that's a wrap.